Well, welcome to, this is our Bible study time with Brown Missionary Baptist Church, and I'm Bartholomew, Senior Pastor here. And as you can tell today, we have turned our Bible study into a panel, especially as our young people and our teachers are going back to school. So I'm just excited about what is going to take place today at 12 noon, as well as this evening at 6:30. So look, go ahead, take the opportunity now, hit that like button, hit that share button, and we want to hear from your questions as well. Hear from you, receive your questions, so you can always text those questions to 901-616-1258. I'm going to open us up with prayer, and then we're going to get right started into this very important discussion this morning regarding our school system and this COVID-19 and all of the health. So Father God, thank you right now. Lord, we're committing our time to you, praying for our teachers and administrators and the students as they return back to the classroom. As safety is a priority, how do we balance this safety with this virus and everything that is happening, and still educate our children? A lot of issues, God, that are on the table, and we're asking you for wisdom, for guidance. Be with these young people.
Had questions about how do we get our children back to school safely during the pandemic. So the purpose of this panel today is to address some of those questions that you might have, as well as some points of interest that we know have come through social media and others. With us this afternoon, we have Dr. Marcus Reeves. Dr. Reeves is an internal medicine physician that's with us today. We also have Corey Swearingen. Corey. Corey is a nurse practitioner for one of our very busy infection prevention practices in Mississippi and Tennessee. And then we have Mr. Keith Williams, who is with the Shelby County Schools Teachers Union. So this panel today, we're going to come and discuss with you just the state of COVID. Just the state of COVID. We know if you turn on your TVs, you will see that we have an increase, an uptick in our COVID cases. Started in right after the 4th of July. We saw an uptick in Memphis somewhere around 9%, and in DeSoto County, we saw it up about 6%. And that number is climbing daily. So I just want to start off with you, Corey. Talk to us about this Delta variant, and why is this Delta variant so contagious?
So, I mean, it's very dangerous because it's so contagious. It's more than 2 times more contagious than the Alpha, than the other variants of COVID. And so the healthcare system around us, like our hospital systems, easily get overwhelmed because the variant is so contagious and it causes so much illness within the community.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now, and let me ask you this question, because, and by the way, I got 3 favorite members up here on this panel today. I don't want Keith and Dr. Reeves to
I don't feel slighted at all.
That Shirley's all a favorite member. But, so you know, we hear about this Delta, and we hear about how bad it is on the transmission rate. What about, how is it with unvaccinated versus vaccinated?
So if you are vaccinated, you can still get COVID. You can still get the Delta variant, but the chances of you getting very sick or close to death or intubated in ICU or dying is 99%. If you're fully vaccinated, it's a 99.9% chance that you will not die if you're fully vaccinated. But if you are unvaccinated, we have been seeing so many terrible outcomes amongst people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I mean, the elderly. The difference is that when it first came out, it was mainly affecting the elderly population. But now this Delta variant is affecting children and young adults, as well as the elderly population.
But guys, I think it's worth repeating that there's a 99% survival rate for those who are fully vaccinated. I mean, in science, there's nothing more, you can't get anything more cement than that. I mean, that is the goal for getting vaccinations. And
do you expect, and I guess the question would be that as the alpha, the beta, the gamma, as it gets progressive, will it get progressively worse? Since Delta is worse than Alpha, will the next variant be worse than Delta?
I mean, the thing about a variant is, I mean, it constantly mutates.
Yeah.
And so, I mean...
So is it gaining strength when it does that?
I mean...
Yes.
Delta has, yes, for
Yes.
sure. Delta has, yes.
Viruses mutate constantly in order to evade prevention. They are smart, so to speak. They only want to do one thing, find a good host and propagate. They mutate accordingly. They mutate to survive.
So you mentioned vaccinations.
Yes.
Because, you know, that's one of the things that we are constantly. Mississippi is just 34%
Wow.
vaccinated as a state. So that means just a third of us in Mississippi are vaccinated. And all of us are fully vaccinated.
Absolutely.
DeSoto County, I understand, is like 40%. I think the Memphis, Mid-South area is somewhere around 40. But this magic number that they're trying to get to, I guess, to start building up this herd immunity or some type of protection, it's like 70%.
You got to get to about 70 to 80% of everyone vaccinated before you reach that herd immunity. We did not get there, but when we started giving the vaccinations, we started to see that decline.
Absolutely.
But we just didn't reach the mark that we needed to meet, and so
then
the
Delta
mutation came, and now it's putting us back on the rise. So we still have to push vaccinations. We
Pastor
already
Lloyd,
have.
Is there anything you could say that biblically that would satisfy the minds of some of these people who are hanging on religion as a means of not getting vaccinated or their job? Is there something biblical that we can satisfy that need with?
Well, you know, a couple of things. One, the biblical scripture that really spoke to me was Proverbs 21, verse 31. And I've shared this before. The horse is prepared for battle, but victory belongs to the Lord. So the Lord, ultimately, he's the one that keeps us safe, gives us victory. But he wants us to get prepared. He wants us to get the horse ready and get the horse out of the stall and onto the field, and he's going to do the rest. And so for me, that's where COVID, the vaccinations are. This is just another way for us to prepare ourselves for what is out there. Right. And I would say this too, because I'm hearing this from members, and y'all know I call y'all every day. But more and more I'm hearing members say, well, you know what, I just don't know what's in it. I don't know about the research that was behind it. Dr. Reeves, from what I understand, the research had already been going on.
These are a new generation of vaccines. The research has been going on for the last 20, 30, 40 years for these vaccines. We had just never used this type of vaccine before, never had a need to, but these companies were already developing these type of vaccines.
So this wasn't a rush, you know, from the last administration that just threw something together.
So they didn't just throw it together. Yes, these particular vaccines, normally when a vaccine is generated, you take 3, 7, 5, 8 years to study it before you put it out. But the research part was already done. It's just we didn't have enough time to study it as long as we normally study regular vaccines. But the research is sound. And so to say, well, I don't know what's in it, I don't know. Most people don't know what's in most medicines they get.
Correct.
Well, we don't even know what's in our food.
Exactly. So to say,
especially when y'all go pick up McDonald's.
exactly. So you can't use that as an excuse, and that's just what it is. It's an excuse.
There is no that we're already getting.
Yeah, we already have. The government already has laws in place for kids to get vaccinations to go to school.
That's right.
They're already in place for certain conditions. Why shouldn't that be the case for coronavirus?
Well, you brought up a good point, and Keith Williams. Keith, I guess your official role now, because you taught for many years.
42
and
years.
42 years, almost as long as I am old.
Yeah.
But so right now, you represent teachers.
I represent 8,000 teachers in Shelby County Schools.
Wow.
And I retired from Shelby County Schools.
So this whole thing about mandatory and so forth, you know, and the teachers, what is?
You know, I think that it's a societal issue. Schools become the place where the transmission could occur.
Yeah.
Children there, it's the large gathering every day, 2,000 and 3,000 folks in one facility. How do you handle that? The caveats that they put on this sheet that they're going to be spreading, the parents have it is accessible on the website.
Okay.
When masks must be worn, when they may not be worn. It is accessible that you're going to have everything is going to be very clean and very sterile. It's going to be social distance. What is not expressed, and may be of some concern to parents, is about illnesses. They will not be checking for certain temperatures and that kind of thing. It's going to be the first thing on here, if the child is sick, keep them at home.
Right.
If you're not feeling well, don't go. That's on the CDC restrictions and guidelines. So I think that parents will play a greater role. We do believe that the best thing the cheerleaders, that's going to come back. Marion, Arkansas opened schools this week. They've already had a pandemic by the end of the week. They had to close them because they had the cases to come back. And it's a very small school system over in Arkansas. Schools down. And I think that Shelby County schools would follow that pattern. But I think that parents would play the greatest role in policing their children.
Absolutely.
And making sure that they have masks, making sure that they are, you know.
And these are some of the points that we want to drive home this afternoon as we are discussing preparing for going back to school. Dr. Reeves was speaking to masks and the importance. You want to speak to that,
Yes.
Dr. Reeves?
It is very important, especially if you're going to be in crowds, that you wear masks. Now, the CDC says if you've been fully vaccinated and you're not going to be in crowds, you don't have to wear a mask. That's fine and good. But when we're talking about going to school, that's where the masks are. You can't go to school and not be in masks.
Correct.
So we're encouraging people to teach their young kids to wear masks. We haven't even talked about what about the kids who are 12 and under, who there is no vaccination right now. But what we're saying is teach your children to wear their masks, wash their hands. We have to start teaching them earlier about hygiene, washing your hands, social distancing. And with those things in place, even if you haven't had a vaccination, you can see a decrease in the number of transmissions that we get from any.
Guidelines. I was noticing there are some new quarantine guidelines from the CDC, and which states that if you are fully vaccinated,
Right.
you don't have to.
You don't-
have to quarantine if you're not showing symptoms.
If you're not showing symptoms and you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to quarantine. But I disagree with that.
I disagree with
I
that.
disagree with that, with that guideline. Let's remember now, CDC puts out guidelines.
And these are the
And
minimums.
These are the minimums that we should do. That's important to
So you all
say.
would say someone, if you've been exposed to some, you know, even if you're not showing symptoms and you're fully vaccinated, you probably ought to still give yourself a few days
Absolutely.
to.
Remember, we're doing this, we're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for
other people.
everybody.
Absolutely.
We
the
have to start
protection.
thinking about
For your
the better
community.
good, not just ourselves.
For the protection
When I
of
get a
others.
vaccination, it's for the protection of others, so that I won't
Correct.
spread it to others.
Right.
Not just myself. And that's how we got to start thinking. We have to start thinking community,
Correct.
not just household or me.
So I want to take us to one last question on the particular school plan. Is there any other equipment that's required for our teachers, like masks
they will
and
have the social
shields
distance,
and things like
They will
that?
have the shields. They will have that. Now, the problem becomes when you have these large classes like PE, like band, like music, larger than normal classes. I don't know how that separation occurs.
Okay.
But they're going to have football practice after school. So you still have to be.
The vaccine.
Right.
If you have not weighed the benefits and the risks, now is a really good time.
I think we're all saying, look, those that are on the sidelines, those that are on the, you know, you're on the fence right now whether or not you ought to get this vaccination. You've already heard the doctor's expert that pretty much says the benefit of the vaccine outweigh any risk
Absolutely.
associated with it.
Right.
The risk of catching this variant is now very likely if you are unvaccinated because of the transmission rate of it all. And then unvaccinated individuals are the ones 90+% that are being hospitalized.
Absolutely.
And,
Right.
that can face possible death from this Delta variant. Now, well, let me ask you this. So if you've already, and this was a question that came in, if you've already COVID-19 and have been fully, if you've already had
it.
COVID-19 and you're fully vaccinated, do you have super immunity?
No, there's no super
No.
immunity.
And I've already had COVID and been fully vaccinated.
You
No,
can
you're
get
not, there's
you can
no,
get COVID again.
yes,
Okay.
The vaccine does not prevent you from getting the virus.
correct. And
The
it's
vaccine
mutated.
prevents you from dying, or like she said earlier,
Hospitalized.
getting very sick and hospitalized.
Okay, all right.
I also, oh, I'm sorry.
No,
go ahead.
I
Go
also
ahead.
wanted to add about the mask, because the CDC also recommended that if you are fully vaccinated, oh, well, you don't have to wear a mask. But
Right.
I want to piggyback off of what he said. I mean, it really is to protect other people, like the
others.
children. Like I have kids who are not old enough to get the vaccine. And so you still need to mask up to protect other people.
Right.
And again, just remember that these mandates are the minimum.
So here's another, and I appreciate you all. Look, you still got time, and hit that like button, hit that share button, put this information out there. They really need to, everyone needs to hear this. I'm confused. If you're fully vaccinated, you can still get sick, and you can still catch COVID.
Yes.
Correct.
You can still catch COVID if you are fully vaccinated,
Yes.
especially with this new Delta variant that has.
Highly
But
contagious.
again, one of the reasons why we have these variants happening is because of the fact that we have not hit that that number
threshold.
of 70 to 80% that needs to be vaccinated so that this pandemic can start going away.
Absolutely.
And
That's
so the
absolutely right.
longer we take to get people vaccinated, to get people prepared for this, we're going to keep running into situations where it's mutating.
More mutations, exactly.
Right.
And more things are coming out. Well, if my child is immunocompromised, should they get a third shot before going to school?
Well, at this time, that has not been recommended.
Correct.
Okay.
The government and the companies that make the vaccines are looking at booster vaccines for later this year, but at this point, right now, that has not been determined. What they were waiting to see was how we did when we had the decline in COVID. Now that we're having the increase again, that may push the government and those companies to say, yeah, we need to go ahead and get ready for the booster. But that is being talked about. It has not been decided yet.
Dr. Reeves, is one vaccine superior to another?
There is no vaccine that's superior to another. I get the question all the time as well, why is this vaccine 2 shots? Why is this vaccine 1 shot? Well, here's the thing. The 1-shot vaccine, or Johnson & Johnson, is gives you about 60 to 70% efficacy by getting that 1 shot. When you get the 2 vaccines, you get 1 shot, you get another shot 30 days later, you get almost about 90% efficacy. But now,
Coverage.
wait. The flu vaccine that we give every year, has only about 60% efficacy, and it covers people very well, which is why the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was approved. It will give you just as much effectiveness as you need to protect yourself. So that's why it gained government approval, and it's convenient because it's 1 shot. Yes, if I give you 1 vaccine now and then give you a booster 4 weeks later, which is what the 2nd shot is basically, you're going to get more immune response. But the Johnson & Johnson vaccine works, and for those people who don't want to get 2 vaccines, it's a viable option. Now, I need to clarify that Johnson & Johnson did have to go on hiatus for a little while because there were some issues with blood clots. But they found out that this only occurred in certain people who had certain conditions, and it only occurred in like a handful of people when you compare it to all the millions of people who got the vaccine.
Correct.
So there's no reason to say Johnson & Johnson is a bad vaccine.
Right.
It's not. It's back on the market. You can get it. It's 1 shot. It's very convenient, and it will be effective for you. But I'm telling people, get whatever is available. Okay?
That's to say the best vaccine is the
It's
first one you can get.
Exactly.
The first one you can get is the
And
best
talking
one.
about availability, Cheryl, you all are coming back to Brown.
We are coming back to Brown on Sunday from 9 to 2. We will be given to give the vaccine. We'll be giving the 2nd vaccine for those that came by the last time we were here, but we will also give the 1st vaccine on Sunday. So please.
Hey, so this place is in Memphis as well. If you detect that your student is anxious about returning to school due to COVID-19, how do you approach the conversation what should I say? So how do we put?
Is anxious about are they anxious because they are afraid, or are they happy?
I think they're anxious, afraid
Afraid,
about
okay.
just the COVID-19. And so
Okay.
how do we approach this with our young people? Because many of them, it's been a stressful situation.
And it has, and a lot of things have changed. And I would recommend that you look at this as any other anxiety that a child might be having, whether it's separation anxiety from their parents, that the teacher partners with the parent to really drill down on what is the anxiety about.
And sometimes the child takes on the anxiety of the parent.
Right.
Because if the parent has
What we're-
anxiety about it, they will as well.
What
So
we're-
they may need to make sure that they stress the importance
Right.
of going to school, number one, and being vaccinated, number two.
When you talk about any anxiety-provoking situation, you try to decrease the anxiety by taking care of what you can manage
Right.
to decrease that anxiety. You can only manage so many things. There's only so many things that you can do to help prevent you from getting this virus. So number one, if they're young kids, 12 and under, they can't get a vaccine. So what else can we do to decrease our chances of getting it?
Mask, hand wash.
Wash our hands. Tell your kid, I'm going to give you a bottle of sanitizer. You're going to take it when you go to school. You're going to have your mask with you. You're going to learn to wash your hands more frequently.
Right.
And you're going to learn to distance yourself. I'm going to show you, Sal, that if someone is coughing and sneezing over here, social distance yourself. So those are the things that parents can
do to help
They
manage.
can
Right.
do that.
Right.
And that's what I think will decrease the anxiety for the kid and for the parent. You can
Right.
only handle what you can handle.
Right.
I want to switch our conversation for just a little. Just a little bit. We see that there is a clear delineation in age groups that are receiving the vaccine. So, Dr. Reeves, what would you say to that clear delineation of the age group that says, no, I don't want it, to those that are saying, you need to get it?
We've all been young. And when you're young, you are invincible. So you think.
Until you're not.
We all have been there. I'm encouraging everyone to get the vaccine. If you are of age to get the vaccine and you don't have a medical reason not to get it, and there are some people who do, if you don't have a medical reason not to get it, you should get it. Not so much for you. If you're young and healthy and you get the virus, you may not get sick, but you can easily transmit that to someone who can.
Right.
Remember, we're thinking about community. We're thinking about everyone else. We're trying to decrease that death rate that we saw with COVID early on. So I say everyone get the vaccine. What we want people to do is talk to your healthcare providers. What we're seeing, people are getting information from too many different sources.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Aren't
Misinformation.
reliable. Well, misinformation. These sources are not reliable.
Fake news.
Talk with
Fake
your healthcare providers. Go to the CDC site. Talk to your health department. Your local health department has a wealth of information about what to do, about the viruses, about the vaccines, all of that. But you need good information so you can make a decision. There is no reason for most people not to get a vaccine.
Correct.
Now, and on that note, look, our time, believe it or not, is far spent. So now y'all know that Baptist preachers are not the only one that can talk. Doctors and school administrators can talk as well. But I did want to get this one last one in before we end. And we'll be back at 6:30 p.m. So please send those questions that you may have to 901-616-1258. You can text them to that number, and we'll try to get as many of them off right off the bat at 6:30. You can join in again. I'm an educator with concerns. What should I do to boost my immune system against the virus as I return to work?
So one thing is that you can get like some emergency, which has vitamin C, zinc, and B vitamins, which are immune boosting supplements. Also elderberries, which come in gummies. You can get this stuff from Walmart or Walgreens. But I mean, also the same thing, mask, wash your hands. My children, they wear the cloth mask, but we have backup masks. If something happens, you got backup masks, you have hand wipes. That's another thing to just reduce the anxiety. Like we do supplements to help with the
thing that really helps your immune system is taking care of yourself. Eating healthy,
sleep.
drinking water, fresh fruits and vegetables, which are fortified with those vitamins and minerals that we just talked
So
And
zinc,
if she has
D,
a
C.
compromised health immune system, she may be able to get the FMLA telework agreement. That is possible for teachers through the district. If her immune system is compromised to the point where she has other comorbidities, then she should let that be done.
Okay, okay, so she may be able to opt
Yes.
out of going into the classroom.
Right.
All right, wow, great information.
As our time is far spent, I do want to say that during the vaccine event on Sunday, if you have questions that you want to talk to a healthcare provider, we will have nurses on site that will pull to the side to talk to you, to explain the science to you. If we don't know the answers, I have Dr. Reed's number. I can call him, and we will get the answers for you. It is very important that you come out on Sunday to get this vaccine.
So spread the word. We'll be back here again in just a few hours, 6:30 p.m. to answer your questions again. But I appreciate this wonderful panel of educators, of health administrators and doctors and nurses for just coming out and informing us how we can send our schools, our students, back to school safely. God bless you. God keep you until this evening.
Until this evening.